Now we want to get to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Let's listen.
Step one is the stabilization of the country. We don't want it descending into chaos. Part of that stabilization, and the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible, is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and in fact about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front. The second phase will be a phase that we call recovery, and that is ensuring that American, Western, and other companies have access to the Venezuelan market in a way that's fair. Also, at the same time, begin to create the process of reconciliation nationally within Venezuela so that the opposition forces can be amnestied and released and from prisons or brought back to the country and begin to rebuild civil society. And then the third phase, of course, will be one of transition. Some of this will overlap. I've described this to them in great detail. We'll have more detail in the days to follow. But we feel like we're moving forward here in a very positive way.
How long will this take, Secretary?
Some senators who were in that briefing describing your operation variously as that you're winning it, that there's no plan for Venezuela going forward.
Yeah, they're going to say that. I used to be a senator too. That's what you always say when it's the other party. The bottom line is we've gone into great detail with them about the planning. We've described it to them. In fact, it's not just winging it. It's not just saying or speculating it's going to happen. It's already happening. Like the oil arrangement that we've made with PDVSA on their sanctioned oil that they can't move. Understand, they are not generating any revenue from their oil right now. They can't move it unless we allow it to move because we have sanctions, because we're enforcing those sanctions. This is tremendous leverage. We are exercising it in a positive way. The president described it last night. Secretary will have more to say on it today, who's involved in running this portfolio. And we feel very positive that not only will that generate revenue that will be used to the benefit of the Venezuelan people, and we're ensured that that's what the case is, but it also gives us an amount of leverage and influence and control over how this process moves forward.
Mr. Secretary, on Denmark, sir. Mr. Secretary, on Denmark. Why has the administration not taken Denmark's offer to discuss the situation in Greenland? And
well, I'll be meeting with them next week.
Will you take military intervention off the table?
I'm not here to talk about Denmark or military intervention. I'll be meeting with them next week. We'll have those conversations with them then. And but I'm not having anything further to add to that today.
Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers? Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there. But so I just reminded them of the fact that not only did Truman want to do it, but President Trump's been talking about this since his first term.
The White House put out a statement last night saying that the military option.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
They said the military option is on the table. So is the administration really willing to risk the NATO alliance by potentially moving ahead with military operation?
What I think the White House said yesterday is what I will tell you now, and I've always said. The president always retained the option. Every president, not this president, every president always retains the option. I'm not talking about Greenland. I'm just talking about globally. If the president identifies a threat to the national security of the United States, every president retains the option to address it through military means. As a diplomat, which is what I am now, and what we work on, we always prefer to settle it in different ways. That included in Venezuela. We tried repeatedly to reach an outcome here that did not involve having to go in and grab an indicted drug trafficker. Those were unsuccessful, unfortunately.
The people of Venezuela are waking up to the same regime. Do you not worry about that?
Well, first of all, the bottom line is that there is a process now in place where we have tremendous control and leverage over what those interim authorities are doing and are able to do. But obviously this will be a process of transition. In the end, it will be up to the Venezuelan people to transform their country. We are prepared under the right conditions, using the leverage that we have, which includes the fact that they cannot move any oil unless we allow them to move it. Well, again, I'm not going to give you a timeline on it. We want it to move as soon as possible. But we didn't expect this. It's been 3 days since this happened, 4 days since this happened. So I understand that in this cycle and society we now live in, everyone wants instant outcomes. They want it to happen overnight. It's not going to work that way. But we're already seeing progress with this new deal that's been announced and more deals to follow. You're already seeing how the leverage the United States has over those interim authorities is going to begin to lead to positive outcomes.
Does it cost American taxpayers? How long?
It doesn't cost us. It doesn't cost us.
The U.S. involvement in Venezuela. How much will it cost?
Well, it isn't going to cost us any money. For example, this oil deal that's happening doesn't cost us any money. On the contrary, and if it opens up,
no money to
look, I don't have the numbers. What operation are you talking about? The entire thing?
Yeah.
Well, these troops are going to be deployed. None of these troops sit in a dry dock waiting for action. They're deployed somewhere in the world. If they're not here, they're somewhere else. Just today, our forces, not deployed to the Caribbean, seized a boat, a sanctioned boat tied to the IRGC that tried to flee from us. That happened somewhere else. We are constantly involved in action. We have boats in the Mediterranean. We have ships in the Middle East. We have ships in the Indo-Pacific. These ships, if they weren't in the Caribbean, they'd be somewhere else conducting activity. That's what the Navy does.
I want to emphasize that. Question from CNN. The question's never asked how much does it cost when they're in the Mediterranean or the Red Sea or the Indian Ocean or the Pacific. But now that they're in our hemisphere, on a counter-cartel mission or ensuring that an indicted individual comes to justice. Now you're asking the question of cost. It's a disingenuous question to begin with. You're trying to find any angle possible to undermine the success of one of the most historic military missions the world has ever seen. The level of sophistication that Senate just was briefed on, and the House was briefed on a classified level, is something only the United States of America can accomplish. The world is taking notice of that. Certainly Venezuela is taking notice of that. And it continues because two oil tankers, two overnight, were seized by the United States of America, stateless or sanctioned, because the oil blockade, the quarantine of oil out of unsanctioned or stateless vessels continues. That leverage will continue, as Secretary Rubio outlined. So our military is prepared to continue this. As he said, the president, when he speaks, he means it. He's not messing around. We are an administration of action to advance our interests, and that is on full display. We're happy to brief the House.
Two quick things. Okay, number one, because we have to go, because we got to brief the House, and if we don't and they're pissed at us, you guys better defend us. That was because we were talking to you. I'll make one more point. It's a very interesting point. One of those ships that was seized that had oil in the Caribbean, you know what the interim authorities are asking for in Venezuela? They want that oil that was seized to be part of this deal. They understand that the only way they can move oil and generate revenue and not have economic collapse is if they cooperate and work with the United States, and that's what we see are going to happen. We got to go talk to the House, guys.
I apologize.
Well, you testified publicly.
Is it a challenge to Vladimir Putin? That was a Russian flag tanker.
We've just been watching a press conference there with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth talking about the operation that led to the capture of Venezuela's ousted President Nicolas Maduro. Secretary Rubio says the U.S. now has tremendous leverage and is exercising that in a positive way. He also says the U.S. is now controlling the sale of the country's oil and that the proceeds from those sales will be used to benefit the Venezuelan people. We also heard the Secretary of War calling this one of the most successful missions the world has ever seen. Let's bring in senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez for more. Louis, this all comes on the heels of these new announcements about two seizures of Venezuelan-linked oil tankers. What's the latest on that?
Well, Dan, you just heard it there from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Two complex operations, one taking place very, very far away up in the northern Atlantic, close to Iceland and to the United Kingdom, far west of the United Kingdom. One ship there, the Bella 1, now called the Marinera, and now under Russian protection and Russian flagged. That was one operation. The other was down in the Caribbean in international waters. This is another vessel called the MT Sofia, which was also under sanctions and probably had left Venezuela earlier this weekend. And that ship was also seized by U.S. authorities. Now, I'm saying U.S. authorities because it is the U.S. military that transported U.S. Coast Guard personnel onto the ships themselves. It is the Coast Guard that is in control of these vessels because these are law enforcement actions. One of the things that's most interesting is that with the vessel up in the North Atlantic, this was a vessel that had been pursued by the U.S. Coast Guard for more than 2 weeks. There had been an earlier attempt in late December to try to board it. That did not go through. And since then, it has been trailed by a U.S. Coast Guard cutter. What we saw over the weekend was the flow of U.S. military assets into the United Kingdom, which now acknowledges that they did provide assistance by allowing their military bases to be used as launch points for the operation that we saw today. One of the things that's interesting is that this vessel is now Russian flagged, and one of the things that is flagged is not actually carrying a real flag. The ship's crew painted the colors of the Russian flag on the ship's side, but we have learned from the sources familiar that there are actually there are Russian naval vessels nearby, and that were sent to essentially escort this Russian vessel. So questions about what comes next, given that you have this new tension now between the United States and Russia. But a lot of what you heard there from Secretary Hegseth and from Secretary Rubio was about what is going to be done with the oil. Only one of these ships was carrying oil. The one in the North Atlantic did not have oil, but the one in the Caribbean did. And as you heard there from Marco Rubio, he said at the end that Venezuela wants that oil back to be part of this new mechanism that he laid out in quite some detail there to reporters at the Capitol, that there is essentially now a U.S. mechanism where the United States is going to control the sale of Venezuelan oil, and then the funds of that, of the purchase from the purchases, will now be used in legal markets and returned to Venezuela. Unclear how that's going to happen, but the big headline is that the United States is now going to be controlling the sale and transport of Venezuelan oil onto international markets, and then the funds will be returned to Venezuela.
And Louis, the Secretary of State seemed to really want to push back on questions about there being no plan for what to do in Venezuela now. He says there is a plan, not only what you laid out in terms of selling oil, but also the recovery and the transition of Venezuela.
That's right, and we've heard really defiant tones from the Venezuelan government officials. Remember, this remains the Maduro regime because they were the senior officials in the Maduro regime. Nicolas Maduro and his wife transported to New York City for future court proceedings. But the officials that are in charge are essentially the ones who were senior officials in the Maduro regime. And what he is saying that, look, it's only been 4 days, and he feels confident that enough overtures have been made and enough contacts have been made with these officials to move forward with this new deal and potentially for further developments as well. One of the things that he talked about there was how the Venezuelan people will be able to decide and who their future leaders will be. There's no indication that there will be any elections anytime soon, but he's laying out that proposal for some time in the future.
All right, Senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez, thank you.
Let's bring in our White House correspondent, Monica Alba. Monica, a lot to unpack there, but of course starting there on Venezuela and some of these details about the oil. Interesting to hear that conversations are happening. That means that how it was described as the money, all profits would first come into the United States, into legitimate American banks. They're sort of invoking some private sector involvement here. And then that money eventually gets divided up, gets distributed, gets dispersed with the discretion being to the United States, the president determining what happens with that money, but saying that it would ultimately also benefit Venezuelans. A lot of questions still about that plan exactly. But what do we make of this?
Yeah, I think the mechanics of all that are still a bit of an open question, Savannah, and we know that that's going to be discussed as the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, meets with oil executives today and later this week as well. And there will be a meeting on Friday here at the White House where President Trump will meet with representatives from Chevron, from ExxonMobil, and from ConocoPhillips to discuss how some of this might actually work. You did get a little bit more detail from Caroline Levitt there, who said essentially that the oil, those initial 30 to 50 million barrels, will be arriving here at home, quote, very soon, she said. She said the U.S. government has already been marketing this crude oil in the global marketplace for the benefit of the U.S. And then, yes, I also picked up on that and think there are some questions about how this is going to work. The idea that the funds will be dispersed for the benefit of the American people and the Venezuelan people at the discretion of the United States government. So that does require a lot of private sector engagement. And then there are also questions about just the timeline to all of this. Remember that President Trump sort of gave an indication to our own Kristen Welker that maybe this would happen in terms of rebuilding the oil infrastructure and getting this up to speed in about 18 months or so. So over the next year and a half, do oil executives agree with that timeline? Is that something that's feasible? How long is this going to take? But senior administration officials had told us that this is a process that has started immediately, it's underway, and will continue, quote, indefinitely. So I do think that that's notable. And I think, you had a White House and a press secretary here trying to explain, but really delve into this aspect of the oil strategy, which raises all these questions about what we were talking about earlier, Savannah, which is the capture of Nicolas Maduro, the indictment against him and his wife. It doesn't mention oil, doesn't have to do with oil, right? It's focused on drug trafficking charges and other alleged crimes in that indictment. This is a completely different strategy that now the White House, the Trump administration overall, is very much focused on as what's going to happen as a result of changing and now deferring to the interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, who is acting right now as the head of state, who is, according to the White House, according to Caroline Levitt, cooperating and working with the U.S. on this plan for the oil.
إذا أردتم أن تسيطروا على العالم ككل فعليكم أن تسيطروا على النفط. مستلزمات السيطرة على النفط هو تدمير العراق. تسيطروا على العالم.
With the U.S. on this plan for the oil.
إذا أردتم أن تسيطروا على العالم ككل فعليكم أن تسيطروا على النفط. مستلزمات السيطرة على النفط هو تدمير العراق.
La diferencia está en que el gobierno de este país, de Estados Unidos, no quiere la paz. Quiere imponernos su modelo de explotación y de saqueo y su hegemonía a punta de guerras.
And if there is a country that has committed unspeakable atrocities in the world, it is the United States of America. They don't care.
وخلاص لقاء الامريكان يجاوبون على السؤال اللي حاير، لماذا العراق؟ شو سببها؟ فيها سلاح دمار شامل عند العراق وما عندها، كيف يصير حرب يشنط؟ ورئيس دولة عربية عضو بالجامعة العربية، ممكن الدور جاي عليكم كلكم.
What happened to the peace president, you guys? Hey MAGA! Where's your peace president? He is as much a warmonger as any president we've ever had. We're going to attack Iran. Full force attack. A decapitation, conquer Israel, United States together. We're going to attack Iran. Iran is going to react with tremendous military force. That will result in many things, including the temporary, if not elongated, reduction or stoppage of oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, which is about, 25-30% of the oil that we use in the United States. So if that happens, we have to have an oil backup plan. Enter Venezuela. So we are setting the stage so we can have the oil reserves from Venezuela to make up for the lack of oil coming out of Iran and the Persian Gulf after the war is launched against Iran. That's what's going on here. This is a setting the stage. This is stage one of war with Iran. Each of these attacks are illegal, unconstitutional, and immoral. We are now witnessing firsthand what America's founding fathers fought so hard to deliver us from: an aconstitutional, lawless, thuggish government.
What would you assume is the most major threat on the world stage? Anybody, just call it out. You don't have to raise your hand.
Definitely Russia.
Definitely Russia. That's confident. I like it. Who says Russia? Anybody agree with her? Hands? Okay, great. Who else?
China.
Stop yelling at me, but China is a good answer. Anybody? Who else? China?
North Korea?
North Korea. Any North Korea takers? And Venezuela? Anybody? No? Oh, yeah. One guy in the back. A little worried about Venezuela. Everybody's cool with Venezuela? No threat? Okay. Let me ask you this. Which one of these places can claim to have the largest oil deposit on the planet? More than Saudi? More than Iran? Wow. Okay, what about things like gold? More than all the mines in Africa combined? The fact is that Venezuela is arguably the single greatest resource of oil and minerals on the planet. So, why is this country in the midst?
The U.S. has carried out a series of airstrikes in Venezuela, capturing President Nicolas Maduro and his wife.
President Donald Trump has said his threats against Venezuela, the U.S. military buildup in the region, and the destruction of civilian boats are about alleged drug trafficking. But there's another issue Trump has been talking about.
The oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
Venezuela, on paper, has more than 300 billion barrels of oil.
Or roughly 17% of the world's known oil reserves.
Most of those reserves are in this vast deposit known as the Orinoco Oil Belt.
But there's even more potential underground.
The U.S. Geological Survey estimates that Venezuela has more than 1 trillion barrels of oil in place in the Orinoco Belt. To put it in perspective, the world until today has consumed about 1.5 trillion.
The chances are they are going to outlast the world's demand for oil, so effectively they are limitless at this point.
And there already is a U.S. oil company that's been operating in the country for decades.
Chevron produces about 25% of Venezuela's oil today, is the largest investor in the oil industry and in the country.
We are going to run the country until such time as a proper transition can take place.
Good day to you. I am shocked, appalled, and I condemn the kidnapping of Maduro from Venezuela. I urge all world leaders, all 194 world leaders, to condemn this act. It is against international law. Trump is insane. Trump is a lunatic. You have removed a leader of a country and you are putting him on trial in the United States. Let this be a warning for Africa and all African leaders. We need to invest in nuclear weapons. It is that simple. I won't repeat this message. To the Venezuelan people, my thoughts and prayers are with you. America wants your oil. And this is sad to see. It should be condemned immediately by all world leaders.
Shalom, shalom, Israel. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto YAHAWAH, Hashem, YAHAWASHI, Hashem, Bakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of great Muslim. Shalom to my Akim, who are diligently waiting to be delivered from this foul captivity, as well as a speckled bird that may look like the other nations, but are actually Yasharallah. This brother called Cub coming at you, no less. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this I just kind of skimmed through this. I didn't really pay too much attention to it, and I just thought, okay, wow, this is just another Esau being a devil and whatnot. But when I actually look more into this and I see more context and stuff like that, this is actually incredibly insane, and you can actually see the genuine, vile, evil wickedness that they are playing. And the thing is that he said, I'm gonna let this play one more time.
Chevron produces about 25% of Venezuela's oil today, is the largest investor in...
Oh, it's slow, Slocky, hold on. First of all, he said that Venezuela basically has so much oil that it's damn near going to outlast the world's need for oil. So basically, what was going to happen was that if, in the event that other places run out of oil for whatever reason, they were saying that Venezuela would just be the number one place to go to for oil, and then Venezuela would get rich. Venezuela would be the top leading the top leading country, the most riches, and all that stuff like that in terms of oil and whatnot. So let's continue on and let's hear what DJT just said.
The oil industry and in the country.
We are going to run the country until such time as a proper transition can take place.
He literally just said, my freaking cord is killing me. Ow. He just said that they are going to run the country until they decide, okay, we can transfer powers over to whatever. So they are going to be in charge. America, DJT, whatever, is going to be in charge of how Venezuela's money is produced and all that, or used and all that stuff. And basically, they're gonna have they are forcefully taking control of Venezuela. Like there's literally no sugarcoating. There's no other explanation. It is literally just that evil. And then you hear all this stuff where these guys were basically talking about how we're trying to be we're as we are in charge, we're going to be fair, we're going to be nice, we're going to do stuff positive, we're going to help the Venezuelan people out. Well, look at their track record, and hold on, actually, because look at their track record and look at how these other people had said, look, these other leaders had said, you cannot trust these people. These devils want to control the whole world. And this reminds me of Jeremiah, if I can remember it. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 7. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore, the nations are mad. So the nations are mad at Esau, Edom. Okay. Initially, it's from the doctrine that Esau is pushing out on these other nations. But now we're starting to see that it's because Esau's trying to exploit these other nations. Okay. Esau's trying to use them as his own piggy bank and whatnot. All right, using them, exploiting, taking advantage of the stuff, and it's all. As a matter of fact, let me get that as well. I was trying to think of something, but it's Psalms 73, verse 3. For I was envious of the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. For there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain, violence covereth them as a garment. So they are being protected by violence. They're protected by their military force. Oh, America's the strongest military, X, Y, and Z. They're not held to the exact same standards as other nations. If Esau does something, oh well, he gets to get away with it. But if so yeah, you basically get the point. All right. So next, I want to get over here. 2 Corinthians 2, verse 11. Let's say you get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. So we have to be able to watch stuff like this, hearing how these people are trying to talk and trying to sound like they're fair, they're kind and whatnot. When in actuality, it's their true intentions are malicious. Their true intentions are evil. Okay, they intend to backstab. And as a matter of fact, let me get that in Isaiah 32, verse. Did I save something? I'll get that later. Isaiah 32, verse 5. The vile person shall no more be called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful. So actually, I want to get this because in blue letter. Let me just go back so you can see. In Isaiah 32, verse 5. Okay. If we go down to the word liberal, all right, just to show you, all right, liberal, the definition, usage, whatever, says inclined, willing, noble, generous, basically you get the point. Someone that's a good person and whatnot. And in the scripture it says, the vile person shall no more be called liberal. So basically, Esau being that vile person, that vile devil, is not going to be called, oh, he's such a great, the epitome of righteousness, the epitome of good, not one. Generally, people do kind of, partially, not really, but generally, people do see or do view Babylon as this great country and whatnot, and other citizens do see that. Other citizens from other countries do agree with that, but slowly but surely, the truth is actually getting out that Esau or Babylon or or America more specifically, they are actually not as good. And the way that we know that is because people are starting, when we have access to news and stuff like that in the internet, which basically just as soon as someone uploads some video or whatever of what's going on, which they've done that in China, they've done that in I forgot what other countries, but Hamas or whatever that Pakistan place that got bombed and whatnot. So all these different stuff that's going on. People are able to see that, okay, well, all this stuff that Esau is telling us, it's not true, and they're lying. This is actually them that are perpetuating stuff and being the actual villains. All right. So yes, this Esau is a vile person, and he's not going to be called liberal anymore because everyone can see that he is actually the villain of the story. All right. So yeah, I just want to get that out. But finally, Sirach chapter 14, verse 7. And if he doeth good, perfect, beautiful way to end this off, actually. Sirach chapter 14, verse 7. And if he doeth good, he doeth it unwillingly, and at the last he will declare his wickedness. Okay. So over here, we see that Esau is Esau is planning or not planning, talking about how he plans on doing good, but in actuality, we know based off his history or based off his track record that it's not going to be good. We all get this, and then Isaiah chapter 10. That's it. So with that, I pray this lesson was edifying. I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI, double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone, above the ball, and Shalom.